Do you ever wonder why some people seem super duper extra organized and always keep track of things, and then the rest of us, myself included, have a hard time remembering when was that supposed to be done? What were we supposed to be doing? How much do we need to do? How long will this take? How much is this going to cost? So in this short video, we're going to walk through some tips from project planners in how we can use some of their wisdom in putting together privacy projects. So first, what is a privacy project? Pretty much anything is a project. There's a lot of work that's been done on this. There's a whole industry and association of folks that think about project management, which is wonderful for the rest of us. We can learn from them. There's a book called Project Management Book of Knowledge, often abbreviated to PMBOK. It is now on its sixth edition, and from that, we have this concept of a project usually started by a sponsor, an initiator, someone. There's a bunch of things that happen that cause the project to occur. You go through an initiation phase of the project, and we'll talk about that. And then there's monitoring and controlling the project. That's what we often think of is the doing of the project. We're planning, we're executing, we might go back and forth in that a few times. And then closing, which we all know sometimes we kind of fall down on, right? Like we're in the middle of it, we give it off to someone and we don't really put nice ribbon and bow around it. Once we get out of the project, though, there's two things that can come out of it. Deliverables, those are the things that we give to the person that asked us for it, for the client. And then we might have assets or records, samples, things that are good for the client, the person who asked for it, or might be useful for us to use in the future. So let's think more about the initiation phase. So this phase is the one where we can really shine and where spending time can make a huge difference. There's a book called Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager, which is us here. And in that book, they give 4 recommendations for people who find themselves managing a project that they're not necessarily a project manager. They might not be the leader of a team. They might be pretty low down in the pecking order. They might be at the top, but for whatever reason, they have found themselves in the position of needing to make sure that the project gets done, or really want to shine by showing that they can do that and they can make sure that the project gets done. So 4 tips. First, demonstrating respect for the project, respect for the initiator, respect for the different people on the team, understanding their time constraints, their needs, what is going to go into them participating in the project, what they're trying to get out of it. Listening, the second thing. So listening to the person who's asked for the project, understanding and really hearing them. So not jumping to conclusions. And we'll talk about this question funnel in a second, but that really is a critical aspect of it. Then, we've all heard the tips. You listen, then you clarify. Let me make sure that I understood. Let me make what I'm hearing you need is X or Y. And then being accountable. They talk about practicing accountability, so setting a deadline for yourself and then making sure you live up to it, but making sure that we're all staying on track. So things that you have set up for yourself, you stay on track, and that you're being understanding and helping others stay on track, whether you're managing up or managing down. But in particular, the tricky part is when you're managing up. So what is that question funnel and how can we listen better? So they have what I think is a really helpful suggestion is to use a series of questions that start with open-ended questions, general information. So tell me more about this project, understanding Where did it come from? What are you trying to accomplish? And then getting more detailed. What are your specific needs? So maybe they overlap, right? So not just what are you trying to accomplish, but what does success really look like? What are the specific and different deliverables or kinds of things that you would like to see or accomplishments that you would like to have happen after this project is over? And finally, the close-ended questions, and this is where you're clarifying expectations, are would it help you if we did X? So something where the person can answer with a yes or no question. And you might find with these closed questions that you get a no. So then you have to go back to your question. So it's not like the funnel just ends, but it might be a little bit of a cycle. Spending some time on this can really make all the difference. Because imagine you're going to spend maybe 15 or 20 minutes in this process, maybe a little bit longer. But if you hadn't done that and you had spent a lot of time working on the middle of the funnel, the execution side of things, you would be doing the wrong thing. And you might be spending 2 or 3 hours kind of spinning your wheels. And so this process should give you some tools to ask more specific questions. But let's think even more, an even better tool for asking more specific questions. First, well, yeah, so let's do that next. Okay, so we're asking our questions, we're in our project funnel. What are we trying to get to? So again, from the same book, so Kogan and colleagues had some suggestions. Some core questions that we want to walk away with at the end of the conversation. Why are we trying to, what is the purpose of this project? What are the real reasons that we're trying to get this done? So we might have received an email that says, can you review this privacy policy? Well, why are we reviewing the privacy policy? What are we trying to accomplish with that review? Is there a particular reason that we're doing it now? Describing the project, giving as much depth and detail in what you're going to do, the specific things you're going to do. That will really help you understand how much time you need to allocate for this. Nothing worse than saying, oh yeah, I'll get that to you on Friday by the end of the day, and starting at midday Friday and then realizing I need a lot more time than I had allocated because I didn't realize I had to do these different pieces. So this is the time to think about what are the different things that I need to do, and then what does success look like? What is needed? If there's several different things that need to happen, what should happen first? And remember, this is a conversation. So you spent some time thinking about this, but you're going back and you're getting buy-in with the project initiator, with the sponsor of the project. Another critical piece that we often overlook is to confirm what's not included. So when you're thinking about what you're going to do, what are the things that you're not going to do? And an interesting thing is that sometimes when you identify those, people say, oh, you know what, actually, thank you for clarifying that that wasn't included. I would like you to do that. And then finally, and this gets to that end piece, how do we know that the project is over? So we often think when we're working on a small project that it's over when our piece is done. But that might not be true. We're just a cog in the wheel in some ways, and providing information to people about, let's say it's the privacy policy review. It's not done when we give them a draft, it's done when it's posted on the website. Well, when you think about what that means, what done is when it's posted on the website, that might bring up for you some other deliverables or other things that have to happen that are part of this project that might not be included in what you're doing, but might be something that someone else needs to do. And that's where, from a client's perspective, or the recipient of the project outcome, their perspective is, wow, this person has really on top of things and has really thought this through because they've thought through all the steps that need to happen until the project is over. So I encourage you to pause this for a second and give it a try and think about a simple project that you did recently. And remember, in some ways, everything's a project. So going to the grocery store or ordering groceries on Instacart might be a project, but lots of things can be broken down to a project. Taking the dog out for a walk could be a project, and with our dog's success, which is, that she pees or poos outside, does not always happen. So think about a simple project and use that tool from the last slide and give it a try. So now let's think a little bit more in depth about what it is that you're going to be doing. So we talked about breaking down the deliverables. Why do we want to do that, and how do we do that? So breaking it down, as we've already kind of inferred, is going to help with figuring out how much time you need to spend. If it's a project that is being done for a client, it can help with budgeting. It can help refine the scope, help you understand how much you need to do. If you're working for a partner, how much the partner needs to do. If you need to bring in others, if you need to delegate down or delegate up, what are those different pieces? It also helps with ease of mind, right? If you have gone through this effort of thinking this through, people who you're doing that project with are going to be so relieved knowing, you know what, it's all been thought through and we're on track and this is where we're at. The client is going to be thrilled. This has been thought through. We're on track. And again, so important to do this in the beginning, not in the middle, after we've already spun our wheels, not at the end when it's too late. A work breakdown structure is something that I encourage you to read more about. It's the list of deliverables, the elements that goes into the project. How do we create these plans, break these things down? So what I want to leave you with is one last exercise for you to try, which is a mind map exercise. So there's lots of ways of breaking down a project. There's a post-it note exercise, mind map exercise. At the very end, I want to encourage you to sequence the activities, but first let's look at a mind map exercise. So here I've done creating a written information security policy or program. So there's lots of things that go into that. We need to understand the client's current activities. We have to determine how the company implements their policies. We have to identify key cyber risks. We have to create that thing, train people around it, audit compliance. So let's take first lots of different things that we need to do. One of them is understanding current activities. So we've thought at a high level and we're just kind of narrowing it down, right? So understanding current activities, different pieces that go into that, getting alignment on what we've understood, interviewing the key personnel first, that might be first, reviewing existing documentation, that might happen at the same time. So let's take that one. So if we review existing documentation, we're going to need to gather that documentation. We're going to need to have a platform for getting the information, whether we're getting it externally. We want them to create a Teams folder where they're going to let us access the information. Then one of the pieces of that is going to be to summarize what we've heard. So as you can see, it could work in a big project. We could do this in a little project, but it helps us break those things down. And then we can start thinking about what do we need to do first and what do we need to ask of others, right? What do we need to ask of the client? I need the documentation. Those are the kinds of things where you can keep things rolling and you can keep things moving and you can keep track of all of the different pieces that need to occur. things might come up later, but this is going to give you an amazing start to being able to do things, understand how much time something will take, and understand how to accomplish the different pieces of a project and to keep it organized and to really make people feel like, gosh, that person, they've really got their act together, and I'm so glad to be working on a project with them because they always think everything through and they never let anything slip through the cracks. And that's what we want everyone to think when they work on a project with us. So I encourage you to give it a try. Think about when you went through, if you pause this recording and you put together an initiate project plan, what was the hard part? What was the sticky part? And give a mind map a try, and see what it's like and share it with others. So I hope this is helpful and that your next project is a really successful one.